I know there are a lot of us that have a fear of missing out on things, and that a lot of our hustling drive, our feelings of overwhelm, come from the fact that we are trying to do too much with too little time. And even though we know this, and we know that it's stressing us out, we still get caught up in that fear of missing out. And what do we do with that, Dr. Natalie? I have heard that question in different formats a million times. So today's podcast is all about that. And I want to give you a little glimpse about why I'm going to talk about this. You know that I like to practice what I preach to you. And you know that I struggle just like you do with all of that. So I just recently went on a work trip. And during that work trip, was absolutely obsessed with getting all of my other work done while I was doing this conference. And I was working myself into a tizzy about it. Not to mention the fact that I was laying on myself all of this guilt about missing out on some of my kiddos' things that were happening back home because I was out of town during that time. So layer upon layer of the guilt and the fear of I'm not getting to this and I'm not getting to that and how am I going to catch up, all kind of culminated in making me nearly ill and maybe even could have gotten sick, but thankfully did not catch a virus or anything because I was really at my wit's end. It was affecting my sleep. It was affecting everything. And I know you've been here, and this constant hustle for worthiness is sometimes how I talk about it, but really it's just this fear that if we don't get to everything that we set out to, that somehow our whole lives are gonna self-destruct, and we don't know how to get ourselves out of that pickle. So I have a solution to that, and I want you today to keep listening so that you too can employ this in your own life. Let's get rid of FOMO, and we're going to instead employ JOMO. Oh, wait until you find out what that is.
Welcome. This is Midlife Crisis to a Centered Life Thriving, a podcast that teaches women in midlife to unapologetically stop silencing their dreams and start designing the lives they want to live in. I'm your host, Dr. Natalie, and as a clinical psychologist of the last 2 decades and a twice-divorced single mother myself, I not only know how hard it can feel heading into midlife, I am living it right here with you. I have taken all the many failed attempts and lessons learned in my own life and combine it with my extensive clinical experience to give you the tools you need to make midlife the best time in your life. No joke. So let's get started.
Are you on my mailing list yet? Because if you're not, you really should be. You want to join at learntoloveyourstory.com. If you scroll down, I'm giving away a freebie for you. Honestly, you know what it is? A free course. I sell online courses, but this is a course just for you. And it's about freeing yourself, letting go of what others' expectations and ideas are for you. You know, that nagging self-doubt in your head, it's usually fueled by your consideration of what others think of you over your consideration of what you think of you. And so I teach you in my video all about what is underlying that kind of self-doubt and how to get out of that conundrum. And I give you a workbook that goes with it that helps you to build the skill sets that you're going to need for that. So please make sure you're on my mailing list, because at the least, you're going to get a free gift. And at the most, you're going to hear about all the things that we're doing on Midlife Crisis to a Centered Life Thriving and LearnToLoveYourStory.com. And you don't want to be missing out on any of the new things that'll be coming your way.
Welcome back, everyone. It is finally me talking to you, brand new, a new podcast, new material. Thank you so much. I thought that I needed to reprise my self-care series that I had put on not too long ago. It was about a year ago. And I added another one right at the end about how self-love really does fix everything. And that's going to be helpful as we talk today about how JOMO needs to replace FOMO, because FOMO is killing us, ladies. It's killing us. And here's how it's killing us. So one of the things that we know to be true from the science is that our stress, our ability to manage stress, starts to diminish in our perimenopausal years into menopause. And as we're transitioning our life around that, we're probably in at least Western culture and American culture at one of the most stressful times in our life. So we've got, our jobs, our careers, we're well into those. Or if we had chose to stay home with children, we've got a whole bunch of transitioning happening there because our kids are probably aging out of our households. Or we're somebody who had our feet in both worlds. Oh my gosh, we know how that goes, right? So we're also facing, though, that our parents are aging, that we might have our hands in caretaking an older generation and a younger generation. There's all kinds of things that are happening in our lives that are creating more stress than probably at any other point in our life. So it just seems kind of mean that this is the time that our biology is going to tell us, oh, and by the way, you can't deal with all of that anymore. I know that in your 30s and your 20s, you could hustle. You could keep up with the Joneses. You didn't have to have FOMO because you were never missing out on anything. You were probably generating everything. But at this stage in your life, whoops, we're not going to be able to do all of that any longer. And it really is. It's like a cruel joke, right? So last week, I was out of town the entire week for a conference. And it was, something that was work affiliated. Like, it wasn't like I was out there and ignoring all the other jobs that I had. I also let people know that I was out of town, all the things, right? But I was obsessed with getting up at like 4 a.m. and starting my emails and making sure that I got as much of my workday done. That was a normal workday before I went and did the 8 hours of conference. Then I would come back. I would try and catch up again, and I was exhausted. And then every night there was either an activity or a dinner or some sort of networking event. And so I'd go back into a network, and then I'd come home, and I'd come back to the hotel room rather, and I'd crash, and I'd try to get up early the next day and do it all over again. And I was employing one of the things that I talk about on the podcast and in my online courses, in my coaching, all of the things. I was trying to employ some compassionate self-awareness. I had awareness I was doing this. This was definitely a pothole that I have stepped in before. And I was doing this completely knowingly. And I was trying to hold myself back from it. And then finally I was like, stop fighting yourself, Natalie. Just like do the thing, but watch yourself do the thing. Because maybe there's a lesson somewhere in here. Maybe there's something to be learned here. And I really, by the time I got home, I was so plastered, like just exhausted from everything, that all I could fantasize about was like sleeping in on Saturday. And that is not something I normally do. I'm an early morning person. I get a lot of stuff done in the morning and enjoy my morning time for myself, like for the good coffee and the quiet in my house and all of those things. So I was looking forward to that. And then what ended up happening was I totally forgot that my daughter had a birthday party she was supposed to go to. Oh, yeah. So it was like Sunday afternoon when I'm wearing the same mascara that I was wearing on Friday. Yep, you betcha. Didn't even wash my face. I did brush my teeth, but I did not wash my face. I was there, right? Like I had burned myself out. And then the Sunday scaries start, right? Like, oh my God, I got to go back into this work week. And now I've ignored things all through this weekend because I was so burned out trying to keep up with it all last week. And I had to like really sit down with myself and think about what am I hustling for? What is it that I'm trying to keep up with? What is the world going to end? Is this ball that's hurling around the sun going to really just spontaneously combust if Natalie doesn't get these things done? No. So why am I feeling it like it's the fear of God? Why am I like feeling that pressure? You know what I'm talking about. You've had this internalized pressure. I know you have. So I put some thought into it, and I listened to a couple podcasts. I went for a couple walks while I was really just trying to unpack this for myself. Like, how did I get here? Why am I having the Sunday scaries? What can I do to pull myself out of this and start my week off on a good foot instead of on a foot of, am I ever going to be able to catch all up? And what occurred to me is, it's not like the traditional fear of missing out, right? Because I think traditionally when we hear that term, fear of missing out, we're thinking like there's these fun things happening and we don't want to miss them. So we're trying to say yes and do all the things. But there is a fear, a real body-based fear about not keeping up with everything that I feel like I'm responsible for. And certainly, even the timelines of keeping up with that, like they're in my own head. They're not timelines that somebody else set for me. Sometimes with work stuff it is, but it's more timelines like I need to have this done. I need to get this done. And I need it to be done on this time. And I need all those emails to be out of my inbox before I go to bed at night. And I need this. And I know that you've had these experiences like this. And I realized it really truly was a fear. It was like a fear of if I miss doing all these things, something really bad is going to happen. And I think the narrative that I really uncovered in my compassionate self-awareness is like, and maybe you have this narrative, I was telling myself a story that like my whole life would collapse. Like that's where my brain goes. It's not real rational. Like as I started to unpack it, you're like watching yourself do this and you're like, wow, I really am scared of this. Like I'm going to lose the job. Well, I'm not going to, the job sent me to the conference. Like they knew I was gone and not going to answer emails. They're probably real surprised that I was doing it. Right. Like, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not going to lose, my license to practice in it because I didn't answer emails. Like none of these things are not going to happen at the epic level that I've created, but I've created that. And I had this kind of realization of how profound these stories are that we tell ourselves about things. And the unsaid story, right? Like it's not one that I was clearly articulating to myself because as I said it out loud, as I say it out loud to you, it's like, of course, the world isn't going to end if I don't answer emails. Of course, the world isn't going to end if I don't address this issue with this person right away, right? Like that's not going to happen. So why am I scared of it like it is? Why am I scared of it like it is? Well, you're scared of it like it is because that story has been a story you've told yourself for so long. You don't even have to say it anymore. It's just an instant habit to be that fearful about missing doing all the things. So I want us to switch this up because I know the science is so clear that both stress is diminishing, or our capacity for stress is diminishing over time as we hit menopause, but so is it diminishing our lives and our livelihood. Like if there were 3 things that I could encourage you to do to stay emotionally well and as empowered and joyful in your life as possible, it would be sleep. Like first, get your sleep under control. Make sure you're sleeping 7-8 hours, maybe 7 to 9 hours, somewhere in there every single night. Same time, same place, getting up at the same time. That cures a lot of our biological problems, cures a lot of our stress. I say cure and I'm not using that term lately. Sleep is really that important. Get our nutrition under control because our moods are highly tied to insulin insensitivity. That's also something that happens during perimenopause, whether or not you're a healthy person or not. Your estradiol goes down, and with that goes the capacity for being sensitive to the insulin. And so glucose, you don't want spikes. You don't want low lows, high highs. You want to stay in the middle. So your nutrition is really important to making sure that you're doing that statically. And the third thing would be to make sure and protect your peace. That you don't just keep running to the next thing, but that you're allowing yourself time and space for yourself. I think that might be the most important self-care tactic that you can have. It's really a boundary, right? It's not something that you're doing to replenish, but it's something you're doing to fiercely protect your peace at this stage in your life. It would be those 3 things. I think that is so key to getting through midlife without a midlife crisis, is those three things. And as I was unpacking this FOMO kind of response that I was having and how much, energy was being generated to move towards like, I need to finish this. I need to be able to get to these emails and like as if my life depended on it. Like I was so intrigued by how is that so powerful over there. And as I was unpacking that and as I was thinking about those three things, my nutrition, my sleep and keeping my peace, I was like, how do we do that? Right? Well, I think we need to change FOMO, fear of missing out, into JOMO, the joy of missing out. I think midlife needs to be all about discernment of where I put my fucking time. Like I'm not even going to be apologetic about swearing about it or any of that. It's serious. It's serious business and our health is at risk with this. If we don't get stress under control, we are taking years off of our life. And my friends, the one commodity that we cannot get more of in this world is time. We cannot get more of it, right? We're not even really sure how much of it we do get. It's a finite resource. And the only breath that we know that we're going to take is this one that we're taking right now. So if we are in this moment worried about what's happening in future moments that aren't even here yet, and we are taking time out of this moment in preparation for something that we might miss out on, or we might miss the opportunity. No. Like that is a resource too precious and it's not protecting our peace when we are so compelled to try and keep up. So what I want us to think about today in this podcast is how do we start to transform the way that we think in those moments and change it back into something more like the joy of missing out. I want us to really just shift our thinking about it altogether. That saying no to things can be joyous, that protecting our time for ourselves can be joyous, protecting our peace can be a joy for us. And that instead of, falling onto the altar of we've got to get it all done and hustle culture, I want us to transform into a group of people that are all about being very discerning about where we place our time. So how do you do that? Like, how do you choose what's important? Well, I think that this gets to something else that is kind of a sticking point for women. By this time in midlife, you've probably spent decades pouring yourself into other people, right? And you thought joyously. You thought that was your purpose. And so you were all for it. Like your job needed you, you were there, you were doing it. Your kids needed you, you were there, you were doing it. Your partner needed you, you were there, you were doing it. So when you ask a woman who's been pouring herself into all of these relationships and feeling like that was her purpose here on this earth, what do you want? You often get a blank stare. Like you often get, I've never asked myself that question. Or an automatic response that has nothing to do with her or what she wants. It is all about what are those roles and what, her caretaking and serving others. So, what I want is, for my kids to be happy. What I want is, for us to succeed at this program that we're creating at my job. I want, my partner to be happy with me. I want my partner to feel like at this phase that they are still attracted to me. They're not telling me what they want. They're telling me what they think others want of them when they are asked that question. So I want you to ask yourself this question. And if you don't have an answer, don't feel shame. Like we've been socially conditioned not to have an answer to this question. But I want you to get real about what you want in your life. What is it? And if you can't come up with an idea, like the content of what I want you to name for yourself, how will I know in my body? How will I know in my body that I feel like I've arrived at what I want in life? What will my body feel like when I am enjoying what I want from life? And start to ask yourself, Is what I'm doing right now feeling that way in my body? Maybe not, right? I can tell you that last week, multiple times I was pushing my body way beyond what it wanted to do. Did it want to get up at 3 or 4 in the morning? No, 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 no. It wanted to press snooze. It was not a full body yes. But I did it. I overrode that and pushed myself on, and then felt kind of burned out by the time I was burned out by the time I hit the weekend. Couldn't even remember to bring my daughter to a birthday party. Whatever. I had really lost it at that point, right? So when you're asking yourself, what do I want? Even if you don't have an answer, that you always have this body. You always have your body mind. And part of why I start my courses with mindfulness and self-awareness, why I push that in my coaching is that, when we don't have words, when we don't have well thought out sentences to answer questions like, what do I want from my life? We do have our body to tell us, does this feel right or not feel right? Do I have reservations? Do I not have reservations? Is this a whole body yes? Or is this a yes, because I think this is what you want me to say at this time, or this is what you want from me at this time, right? So if we want to really kind of pull ourselves into this new phase of life where we have JOMO, the joy of missing out, that we're being discerning and fiercely protective of our time and only doing the things that we have a full body yes for, we need to spend some time with our bodies. We need to spend some time checking in with ourselves when we are answering questions. And I would strongly encourage that you start journaling on this particular thing. If you don't like journaling, I get it. Could you play some music while you go for a walk and self-reflect? Could you have a cup of coffee out on your porch and away from everybody and give yourself 5 to 10 minutes just to think about, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? Almost like you're just repeating that until things start to pop into your head. Now, I think that journaling is really useful because, science is pretty clear. If we start to write stuff out like that, then it prolifically starts to kind of pour out of us a little bit more. But that's okay. If you're not a writer, I get it. I totally get it. But I do think you need to spend some time with yourself and this question, because this question and the answers you start to billow out from it, even if all they are is, what will I know in my body? How will my body feel when I'm experiencing the joy of missing out, when I'm answering questions with a full body yes? What does that feel like versus when it's I don't know about this. What do I notice in my body? You will start to know yourself better, and you will start to then gather more information about what it is that you really want. And you might be surprised if you're using your body as that thermometer or barometer, and it's not a full body yes. You might be curious about that. Like, but this is my kid's blah, 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 and I don't want to do it. Why don't I want to do that? That seems not like me. Well, maybe it's not like the programmed and conditioned version of you that wants to be the best mom ever, but it actually is honoring you underneath instead of self-betraying and self-sacrificing to the point where you're bending too far in order to accommodate for things that you want to be able to do. I get that you want to be able to do these things for the people that you love, but if it's always at the expense of you, there's no you to go around. There's no you left to go do those things, right? So you might be a little surprised by what your body tells you or reveals to you about what you want to do and what you don't want to do. But I want you to really sit with these questions of what do I want and what does my body, what will I know? How will I know or feel in my body when I am joyous, when I really am content and getting what I want out of my life? Even if it's surprising, I want you to face it. It is good information. And more than likely, in that brilliant brain of yours, you're going to be able to figure out how to make it all work eventually. But you're not working with all the information, and that's not fair to you. You're working with only outside-in information. What others are telling you they want of you, that you're super clear on. Clear as day. Need to get through these emails. That was my message, right? I felt like death was coming if I didn't get through all of my emails by the end of these work days, while I was also doing a conference for 8 hours during those work days. What? Like, no, that's not, there was no full body yes behind reading through those emails. What did I want? I wanted to sleep in. What did I want? I wanted to spend time at the conference and learn the information and sit and chat about it over lunch and get to meet new people that I haven't met within the organization that I'm working at. I wanted to do those things, right? I didn't want to make sure that everybody had heard an answer from me by the end of the day. But that's what I was doing because that's what I thought others on the outside in wanted of me. But if I was listening to my body, I would have realized this is not what I want. And my brilliant brain would have been able to come up with a way to compromise that, that I would do some of the emails, but not do them every day, not get up at that ungodly hour at the beginning of the day, that I would catch up with them on, a half day Monday by setting a half day aside but I didn't even give myself that opportunity. I just had an expectation and a fear that drove or compelled me to do that until the point of burnout. Well, that's no good, right? And midlife crisis is really, it's a large scale burnout. It's a large scale, nothing's working the way that I used to handle stress in my world. And there's so many changes coming at me and I can't handle them, right? So I know that those of us that are veering more on the side where midlife transition has become very difficult, very challenging, we're probably not listening to our bodies. We're probably not giving full body yeses. We probably are doing a lot of self-betrayal. And it's been programmed into us to do it, so we're not even noticing that we're doing it. But the one kind of gift or silver lining of our biology not being able to handle all of that is that now we're going to have to address it. Because if we don't, our bodies are going to shut down. And that health issues start to come up, right? Like I was nearly sick by the time I knew. I slept for hours. Had I had even an inkling on that plane of a virus, I'd have for sure had a cold, right? But thankfully, that was not what happened to me. And it was really just exhaustion that I had to come back from. But it's that, like, our health will get compromised. We will start to develop health conditions at this point in our life. Cancers, heart disease, like scary things, things that take years away from us. I don't want that for you. And stress is a leading cause of all of these things. So how do we get rid of stress? We have to miss out. We have to. We have to say no. We have to. We have to set boundaries. We have to. And that's what we're going to do. But we're going to wrap our head around, instead of I'm saying no and it's hard and the challenge. I want you to think about it like a joy. No, this is the joy. This part of my life is the joy of missing out, where I get to pick not doing that. Am doing this though. Not doing this. Am doing this though. This is your time to really step into your power, to really listen to what your body reveals to you, to really sit in some introspection around what you want out of this life, right? And then put into play only the things that you have full body yeses to. No more of the things that you don't have full body yes to. No more. All done with that, right? That's what a centered life thriving is, my friends. And that is what you'll get when you start living with JOMO.
Because I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota, I have to make sure at the end of each of these episodes that I give you the disclaimer that none of the material that I talk about in these podcasts is meant to replace any kind of therapy or formal medical or mental health treatment. And in fact, anything that I offer on my website, my coaching programs, any kind of psychoeducational materials that I release are not a replacement for that level of care. So just take that into account when you listen. This is information for you, and hopefully you find it of value, both as an educational tool and for your entertainment. And I also want to mention that if anyone you know is in a mental health crisis, needs additional help, I always include these 2 crisis resources. They're available to anybody. Pick up the phone and dial 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
And you can always visit their website at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Additionally, there's actually a crisis text line. So if you're not somebody that likes to pick up the phone,
text HOME, home, to 741-741.
to the crisis text line. And you can find them online at crisistextline.org. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and I hope that you like and follow me wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe consider leaving me a review. It always helps me to keep this podcast relevant when I know what you want to hear about.